Hi, so we are fellows and associates, and we often see and hear a lot of interesting questions being asked in interviews, especially in our area of work. So we thought we would gather around together and ask each other some of the silliest or worst questions that we could think of, and we're going to ask each other. We actually don't know what we're going to say, but we're going to see where it goes.
So this is a question I was actually asked on interview when I just graduated university in my early 20s for a job in financial services. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my career at the time, and I was trying lots of different places, and this is one of the questions that came up. So Caris, you are holding a dinner party and you can invite 3 people, living or dead, to your dinner party. Who would you invite and why?
I'm sure I've asked. Okay, David Attenborough, just because. Billie Eilish, because I really like my husband.
and why?
Oh, and why? Oh, David Attenborough because I like animals and I'd love to hear all of his stories. And he's just a nice guy. He's very wholesome. He's got a nice calming voice. You know, he'd make the dinner party very splendid. And then Billie Eilish because I feel like we'd get on and we're similar age, and I feel like I like her music, so we'd vibe. And then my husband because I do like him a little bit. So yeah, they're my answers.
So Philippa, what do you think? You are holding a dinner party and you can invite 3 people, living or dead. Who would you invite and why?
I have a feeling I know how you're supposed to answer this within an interview environment in terms of the types of people that you would suggest. But I think for the ease of me thinking of people on the spot, I would probably go more personal in terms of people that I already know, just simply because at least I then know that it's guaranteed to be a good dinner party, because obviously if you don't know the people and they turn up, it might end in disaster. So I would say my grandma, who is sadly no longer with us, simply because I would love to speak to her again and let her know everything that I've been up to. I would also invite my other half again, because I know that would be a lot of fun. I'd obviously get on very well with him, so that would be a positive. And the last person would probably be my brother, because he has lots of funny stories. He gets on very well with my other half, and I'm sure he would also love to see my grandma once again as well.
So when I was asked this in an actual job interview, and I was in my early 20s as a graduate, and having just done a degree in philosophy, I said God, the devil and Nietzsche were my answers, because I thought it would be interesting to have a party where one of the members doesn't believe the other two exist. Didn't get the job. Yeah.
That's a good answer.
That is a very good answer. How would you test if an elevator was working correctly?
I would jump in the elevator.
What?
I would jump around
And the reason...
click some buttons.
And Pete, how would you do the same? How would you test if an elevator was working correctly?
Not sure why I would be testing an elevator was working correctly, but I think I'd ask people in the building if the elevator was working, and then assuming they said yes and there was enough data to go off and it wasn't just one person, then I think I would go on the balance of opinion, and then obviously I'd press the button, make sure the elevator moved up and down, but I think I'd go on peer answers. God, that is a terrible interview question.
So the reason why this question is apparently meant to be asked during the interview process is because it tests a person's logic, and it also tests their risk-taking skills. So, for example, Caris, if she wants to jump up and down, and if it's not previously been health and safety or risk assessed, if she wants to jump around in the elevator, then that shows she might be a bit of a risk taker. But yes, those are the two main reasons behind that question. It shows logic, and it also shows how much of a risk taker you are.
I definitely should have said I'd just go get someone. I don't know why I thought I would do it.
Well, in my head, I was thinking I'd put something in it, like an inanimate object, and then press a button, and then see if it got to the floor that I put in.
If you were an object, an inanimate object, what would you be and why? I got asked this in a group interview once, and we had to bring an object in and explain why we were this object.
I feel like I'd want to be something where you're able to kind of witness daily life of somebody or in a house, just because I'm quite an inquisitive person, so it'd probably be quite interesting rather than being stuck in a room or in a garage somewhere where you don't get to see a lot. So maybe something within like an office kitchen, because you might get a lot of the conversation that's going on. So maybe like the fruit bowl in an office kitchen.
And you get eaten.
The fruit bowl?
Oh no, not the fruit bowl. That's true.
I think I'll be a precious stone. I'd be like a diamond or something, because I'm all about living a really long time. I like longevity, so I thought if I was a decent diamond, I might get passed from ring to ring over generations, and I can live a long time.
So you're basically saying that you sparkle.
I do sparkle, yes.
Diamond in the rough.
And you were
answered.
created out of immense pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly how I answered. I gave the most typical, if you put it in AI, probably answer. I brought in a picture of the Infinity Gauntlet with all the Infinity Stones, and said each stone represented how pressure, like time. I'm on time, and yeah, it was very cringy.
Okay, so this question is a format of a question that was very, very common about 10, 15 years ago, but you still see it asked today, often for sales-related jobs or for interviewers that need a salesperson, haven't really thought about what they need. It's the sort of question you might also get on The Apprentice, I guess. So, Philippa, how would you sell cheese to a dairy farmer?
I would sell the fact that it has already gone through the process. So, I mean, that completely eradicates his function and his career in life, but I'd say that it would be supplementary to what he was already doing, so not to be negative on his career, but say that he could also have this type of cheese that has also already been through the process and it is ready to sell. So it's efficient, and he can make a little bit of money just from selling that without going through the process, so that can then supplement his business and for him doing it from start to finish.
I would say it's time to kick your feet up and go on holiday and just rest and relax. You know, the hard work you've done, you know, you've paid it all off, but now it's your time to, you know, reap your rewards and eat some cheese, and just don't worry about making it. Just you sit back, go on holiday, retire early, and have some cheese.
And this question really comes from the old adage that someone can sell snow to Eskimos, and frankly, it's not really demonstrating any real knowledge of sales.
No.
That most sales are contextual, and if you're selling to people, knowing your product is most important. And if you were really selling cheese to dairy farmers, I think you'd need to rethink your life options.
So you were given an elephant.
Yeah.
You cannot give the elephant away, and you cannot sell the elephant.
Yeah.
What would you do with the elephant?
Oh, I'd just have it as a pet, if it would mind. And I'd set up an elephant Instagram, like all the dog Instagrams, and like make it famous, make it TikTok famous, you know, and then I'd be my little sidekick. It's really late. But yeah, that's all I'd do. Do you think you can do this job? Or can you do this job? Because I felt like you wouldn't just say no.
I think, I mean, I've certainly been asked something like that. I think that the problem with it is the one that you pointed out, that, so I'm not answering the question directly here, but I'm just commenting, but it's yes, no questions in an interview are generally terrible, because unless you're asking a question deliberately to find out a binary answer, and you might be doing that in certain circumstances, but not this one, that a legitimate answer is yes. And then I'm not sure what you're expecting. So that's why it's a terrible question, because the answer is likely yes. And you could expand on the answer, but it depends on what. So either you want the candidate to expand on their answer, but then if they don't, you probably ask another question, in which case, what was the point of asking it? And if they do, you could have asked a better question, which would have got more to the heart of it. So what's the point of asking it? It's a truly terrible interview question, so it definitely fits the brief.
Yeah, I think I would just agree. The fact is, if you answer no to that, I mean, I think of any instances where if you would say no, I mean, it's just very much kind of, you would expect people just to say yes and then be able to back up their answer. But then again, as Peter said, you would have to surely you would ask another question on top of that. But yeah, it definitely has a place in one of the worst interview questions.
Caris, what do your hobbies say about you?
Am I answering as if I'm trying to sell myself, or am I just genuinely answering?
I think answer is if you were if I'd asked this genuinely in an interview.
Okay. I enjoy reading, and that makes me intellectual. It says that I have good attention span, and it says that I have good focus and I'm able to commit to something long, especially like a long series.
My hobbies, what they would say about me, they would say that I am determined, that I enjoy a challenge, and that I enjoy bettering myself, and when I've got a task at hand, I'd always want to improve upon my performance. It would also say that I am quite social, as I like to spend time with friends, so I work well within a team, but then I'm also able to work independently as well, all of the cliches, and that I'm also very good at time management.
Yeah, I have to say, I think this is also a terrible question, because I'm not sure how it's relevant.
Yeah, if your hobby's a hobby, isn't it? It's not. Yeah.
It's meant to be separate from you.
And also, like, I mean, if your hobbies are really involved, then you worry about that as an employer maybe, but you shouldn't be worried about that. And if they're not involved at all, then you're making a judgment on someone's application based on the fact that you think they're a bit dull, but that's not really, you should be looking at their competence to do the job.
And my hobby's for me to switch off, not to be I was there like, keep me sharp, but actually I'm just sitting playing Animal Crossing. I don't know what good that does towards my job.
Pete, if someone wrote a biography about your life, what would the title be?
Oh, I've heard this one before. Yeah, this is a very difficult question on the spot, but also you wonder, like, as an interview, what you're actually getting from this. But he didn't mean it.
I don't know what that says about you.
I think it's really hard to think of something off the cuff that's not too dull. Yeah, I'm going to stick with he didn't mean it.
Oh, it's really hard. See, these questions put you on the spot and throw you off. I would not like to be asked these questions. Oh, I don't know, it all sounds cringy in my head. It all sounds cringy. I'd probably do something about maybe me living with Emmy, but I don't know how I'd word it without it sounding cringy, because I was thinking living life to the fullest. It's just so cringy.
Determination.
Yeah, like, I literally cannot think of one. I literally cannot. Caris, stop.
I think the thing with these sort of interview questions is the whole idea behind the philosophy of it is to catch people out
Yeah.
and on the spot. But I think if you see interviews as something where you're trying to trip people up, you're not really assessing their skills for the job, and you're just, I guess to some extent, you're assessing someone's quickness of mind, but that has a limited value in the context. I guess maybe if you're interviewing stand-up comedians, it would make sense, but there are very few contexts, and I think it can come across as very aggressive, and you might be ruling out great candidates because they can't answer a dinner party guests and what they think about selling cheese to you effectively.
If you could have a movie actress or actor or series actor to play you in almost like a biography film, like a documentary film, someone to play you, who would it be and why, Philippa?
I think this actually has come up in the past, not for me. It was someone else describing who they would have play me.
Yeah.
Which I was quite flattered by, but I also quite agree with. And it probably would be Emma Stone. Yeah, I think she's funny, she's relatable, she seems quite down to earth, quite strong, very accomplished for her age. All of the things that obviously I am as well. So I'd probably say Emma Stone.
That's Pete.
I think for me, I've just yesterday watched the movie Hitman on Netflix, which is excellent. I recommend watching it. But what they've done there is take a true story of a guy who worked for the police in the 60s, 70s and 80s, I believe, and he worked as an undercover person on sting operations for people who were hiring hitmen in order to get them arrested for conspiracy to commit murder. But he, the last part of the movie, so they do two things. They fictionalize the time period, so they set it in the present day, and they fictionalize kind of the end of the movie. The last 2/3 of the movie is made up, but the premise is true. So I quite like that idea. So I wonder if you take an aspect of my life and then action it up, and then if we're going to change that, why not gender swap it as well? So I wonder if we go, I don't know, maybe Julia Roberts, and she do a good Pete.
Eat, pray, love.
Yeah, I think that would be good. I could see her as a recruiter who then becomes a spy or something. So I quite like that idea. So yes, I'd go with Julia Roberts.
I think probably all of the ones we've asked and answered don't really have any place, I think, within our industry as interview questions, because they're not reflective of the type of people that work within the industry. They're not really going to glean a lot from what you kind of need from the interview process. So I think probably all of them have elements of being very terrible and very pointless.
I think the binary question is particularly terrible because it's utterly pointless, a yes, no question. But I think beyond that one, the biography question, because I think some of the other questions like the dinner party question and the lift question, I think we demonstrated that even under pressure, there are ways that you can answer that and kind of get through it. I think the biography question really puts someone on the spot in an unfair way. I think that's probably the most difficult of all of the questions, and you would get more people struggling to answer that, whereas like the lift question and the elephant question are all a bit silly, but there are ways that you can, I think most people would figure out some sort of way of answering that, whereas the biography question I think is incredibly tough.
Those are all our silly interview questions that we came up with today. If you've got asked any of these similar questions, then comment down below any questions that you've had that might be just super out there and just that we want to hear from. So yeah, thanks for watching.